Parts of the Caribbean are bracing for Hurricane Maria as Mexico City is hit by a strong earthquake. We're breaking down and going in depth on both of those stories next on Nightside. Hurricane Maria continues to barrel through the Caribbean. Now Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are preparing for potentially catastrophic damage.
Mexico is also sifting through the damage after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake shook the country's capital, killing at least 100 people.
A mother fed up. She says a school isn't doing enough to protect her daughter from bullying.
And my school district that I work for failed me. They failed my daughter, but they failed me too.
Millions of people are at the mercy of natural disasters tonight. More than 100 dead in Mexico after the second massive earthquake in less than 2 weeks.
And Hurricane Maria is tearing through the Caribbean, heading straight for Puerto Rico as a Category 5 storm.
Thanks for joining us on Nightside. Meteorologist Bobby Deskins tracking this. What's going on?
Yeah, a major hurricane, 175-mile-per-hour winds. Wow. The 11 o'clock update is just out. Still look like it's headed right towards St. Croix. Right now, the next several hours, peaking around 2 a.m. and then over towards Puerto Rico as we get into early tomorrow morning and through the day on Wednesday. Look at this thing. It is a machine. It overall is a little bit smaller than what we had with Irma, but look at the eye. There's the Virgin Islands. That's St. Croix right there. Christiansted's up here. The main airport's right over here. That eye wall is going to go right over that southwestern part of the island. And it's going to be happening right about 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're picking it up on radar now out of San Juan. And you can see if I put the track in here from the Hurricane Center, it's basically going to take it right up across southeast Puerto Rico, right up across north central. This line has come a little bit to the north, which spares some areas on the western side, southwestern especially, but it is going to be a long night and day tomorrow in Puerto Rico. You can see the forecast track weakens it over the mountains of Puerto Rico, but continues to weaken it as it turns east of the Bahamas into, it looks like the open Atlantic. I'll show you some of the forecast models. I'll let you know exactly what we can expect here, which I think we're going to be okay, but our friends up north as well too. We'll look at all of it in just a bit.
Thank you, Bobby. Alex, the storm hasn't even made landfall yet, but we're getting, indications of the power of this storm on social media.
Yeah, well, fresh off of a very direct hit with Dominica, this storm is being called catastrophic, and people in Puerto Rico are just hoping that they can make it through tomorrow. So let me show you some of the video that's already being posted on social media. USA Today reporter Rick Jervis says, "It's here." These are the outer bands starting to hit San Juan. Gray skies, rain is coming down, and those palm trees are already swaying.
That's eerie.
Yeah, it is. Here's a closer look at that rain coming down on a beach in San Juan. You see these images, before these storms coming in, doesn't look too serious. In a few hours, that is definitely going to change. Here's another video. It's from National Geographic photographer Mike Theis. He took it in Fajardo, Puerto Rico. That's on the eastern tip of the island. He says winds were starting to pick up. You can see the clouds are moving pretty fast. Now, whether this thing lands as a Cat 4 or Cat 5, it has the potential of being the most catastrophic storm to hit Puerto Rico in a century. So we're definitely watching that there.
Alex, just about an hour ago, I spoke to a couple that we met. They're part of Retired Toddlers. It's a couple that they basically quit their jobs. They're traveling the world, and they know all too well how powerful these storms are. They had to hunker down during Irma in St. Thomas. And get this, they were in Puerto Rico. So today they flew out because of their toddlers or young kids. They flew out of the area, got back here to Tampa because they told me they just did not want to deal with a round 2.
It quickly becomes a cash society, and when you don't have electricity, so no credit cards are accepted. So what happens is you start to get this itch of survival, people are just, they need food, they need water, and if they don't get that, they're kind of, you hear about looting and stuff, and I think it's more of just a survival thing. What are they supposed to do?
So Jake and Michelle Champ, again, who are from this Tampa Bay area, they tell me that they saw lines wrapped around buildings, people just desperate to get supplies, so they can totally understand why people, go into that survival mode.
Yeah, well, even though we're all talking about Maria, a lot of folks on Facebook and Twitter are still talking about that deadly earthquake out of Mexico.
Yeah, they sure are, Alex. 139 people dead, some still trapped in buildings. The earthquake was of magnitude 7.1. It was centered in Puebla. That's about 76 miles southeast of Mexico City. And that's the country's capital and largest city, home to almost 9 million people. That's more than the number of people who live in New York City. And the moments after it hit were caught on video. Look at this. You can see these here. You can see the lights, the walls, the ceiling shaking inside this office. It doesn't even look like you're in an office. I mean, you can imagine how terrified these people are, and they panic, and all of them run outside. We have more video. This one shows the shaking from inside a home. Imagine if this were your house, and you can see all of these people's belongings flying everywhere and falling on the floor, dressers being knocked over. Can you imagine? I mean, this is actually inside the Mexico City airport. I've been to this airport before. It does not normally look like this. People ducked under tables for cover, just terrified. You can see them reaching for their phones, and the lights were swaying and hanging by threads. Just terrifying stuff there. Thousands of people ran into the streets. They even stopped traffic. Some of them pulled out their phones to try to capture images, and others, as you can imagine, just holding on so tight to one another. So frightening to be standing there with the earth moving. Some of the scariest video, though, right here. Look at that. An entire building trembling, then collapsing in huge clouds of smoke that happened to building after building after building. So, I mean, can you imagine standing there and watching that? More than 24 buildings collapsed. Right away, people started digging through that rubble to try to rescue the survivors. A CBS reporter in Mexico City says one of those collapsed buildings is a school, and now rescue workers and neighbors are trying to save those children who were trapped inside.
This earthquake comes just 12 days after a magnitude 8.2 quake hit Mexico's Pacific coast. 90 people died. And today marks 32 years since another huge earthquake, also in Mexico City. It was an 8.0 and killed more than 5,000 people. Think about that, 5,000 people. Just this morning, Mexico held a memorial ceremony for the victims of that earthquake. The president saluted a giant Mexican flag and led a moment of silence for the victims. Part of the memorial service is a citywide earthquake drill that wrapped up just a few hours before the latest earthquake hit.
Yeah, just hard to watch that stuff. It feels so terrible for those people, and our thoughts and prayers certainly with them tonight. Millions of you waited for power. Some are still waiting, and thousands of first responders came to the rescue. We've seen some incredible, haven't we, stories of survival and sadly loss of life. But now one state lawmaker wants a commission to study the Hurricane Irma response to see what Florida can do better next time. Nightside reporter Mark Rivera looked into whether or not that commission would have any teeth.
Yeah, so the short answer is no. Any results from a hurricane oversight commission, and it's still an if whether Governor Scott is going to create one, would be purely recommendations for best practices. But here's why it still matters so much. We have never seen a storm like Irma in Florida before. It affected the entire state. Millions of people took this thing seriously, evacuating. Every emergency management apparatus in the state and county. Even the National Guard was activated. Responders had to plan for 3 big different possibilities, whether it's going to hit the East Coast, go right up the middle, or come, as it did, through our area in just a few days. And State Senator Jeff Brandes says that's why there is so much we can learn from how this response went.
Whether it be looking at the shelters, utilities, medical facilities, how the Emergency Operations Center activated and operated during the times. But I think a complete review at a commission level is something that's appropriate for a storm the size of Irma and an activation the size of Irma. But when there's a hurricane like Irma that infects the entire state, I think that's the perfect time to do a deep dive and learn some really valuable lessons.
So, Katie, Brandes says that burying power lines is also going to be part of that conversation. We're going to see where it goes, though.
I think the confidence people might have in the commission would depend on who's on the panel.
Sure. So Governor Scott is going to be the one that would pick that panel. Brandes says he wants experts in fields, logistics, retail experts for routes, gas, hospital administrators to see how it all went and what they could really gain. People who could gain a lot from finding out what worked and what didn't during this response.
Makes sense, Mark. Thank you. Carolina?
She works for the Polk County School District, but tonight a Polk County paraeducator is speaking out against it. She says her daughter is seen getting kicked and punched in the head on cell phone video. We want to warn you, what you're about to see is tough to watch. But this mom wants you to see this video because she thinks the district should do more to protect her daughter. Nightside reporter Stephanie Ramirez has a story you'll see only on 10 tonight.
And I saw the police report. It says the fight you're about to see happened right in this area 14 days ago. They're minors, so we blurred their faces, but 11-year-old Sage tells us this is what happened to her after she got off her bus and started walking home September 5th.
I told you to stop messing with me.
She's pulled by the hair, punched and kicked in the head, while a second student hits her with a belt, a third recording. Sage's mother, Susan Wilson.
How dare you? I work in your schools and I protect your children every day. And you can't protect mine.
She was outraged after her sitter found the video on Snapchat, but this emotional reaction came after Wilson learned instead of removing the alleged attackers from her daughter's bus, Polk County Public Schools gave her the option of dropping Sage off at one of these two locations.
Basically, me transporting them myself, because that's literally what I'm doing.
We contacted the school district, which confirmed it offered Wilson an alternative transportation option. In a statement, the spokesperson said, "We are aware of the situation and are conducting an investigation, but they're limited to what they can say because these are minors." Sage showed us the bruises she still has on her head. The 6th grader goes to a magnet school, different from the other group, but they ride together. Wilson says she saw the girls involved board their bus this morning.
I preach that every day. No bullying. To me, they won.
The 11-year-old says this all started when she invited a student getting picked on to sit with her. One of the attackers told an officer Sage had disrespected her. Wilson tells us she's terrified she could lose her job for speaking out.
But I'm a parent, and my child deserves more than what she got.
In Lakeland, Stephanie Ramirez, 10 News.
The young suspects in that video will now have to go to court. We were reluctant to show you Sage's face in this story, but her mother said she didn't want her daughter to hide anymore and hopes that she can be an inspiration to other kids who are bullied and afraid to come forward.
Well, the headaches from Irma, they just keep coming. Many of you are writing in telling us that when your power came back, your appliances weren't working. And some of you asked if the generators had something to do with it. Nightside reporter Jason Puckett went to an expert to find out.
Anyways, this is my tool bag.
That's because you've been busy.
Yeah, I've been very busy. Yeah, we're having a hard time keeping up.
Ralph Feldkamp's been working non-stop since Irma. He's the owner of Ralph's Appliance Services, and this is what a diagnostic visit looks like.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to check the temperature. If it's partially cooling or whatever, we'll take a temperature and be sure that it's within range.
After Irma, many discovered their appliances just weren't working anymore.
And here's why. Generators like the ones that power our live trucks, well, they don't always provide constant power. You can see these numbers changing as we're talking. And things like overuse or running out of gas, well, that can cause severe drops in voltage.
The voltage, like your power goes out, that's okay.
Feldkamp says the problem stems from modern appliances using electronic chips.
But when the power comes back on or it flickers and things like that, that's where it starts tearing up compressor relays.
Repairs can range from hundreds to thousands of dollars, but there are some steps you can take first. The easiest, unplug it for a period of time, then see if any error codes appear.
Like it may be flashing 2 times and then it'll be doing 3 times. That would mean code 23.
And finally, if that doesn't work, you can always call an appliance repair company to come check it all out. Jason Puckett, 10 News.
Great information to have as we all try and get back to normal and get that power back on. All right, let's get you started now with Hurricane Maria. Just an incredible storm, guys. We've been watching this all night. It's on my Facebook page, too. I'm going to keep that up going overnight. It's a data feed, so you can share it with your friends in Puerto Rico as well. It's headed right now towards St. Croix. On the southwestern tip here, Sandy Point, just had sustained winds in the 40s, a gust of over 106 miles per hour. That's a gust. The airport, just to the east of that, sustained in the 50s, gusts to just about 90 miles per hour, and that should go up over the next couple of hours. The eye wall is about 25 miles wide, 20 to 25 miles wide. The storm is getting bigger. Hurricane force winds go out 60 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds go out 160 miles. But most of the winds I've been finding on the eastern side of Puerto Rico right now are steady in the 30s, the low 30s. That number needs to get to 39 before it starts to get tropical storm force, but it will. It'll get there tonight. Here's the radar you can see now. That's very heavy rain and wind that's moving into St. Croix. That is the heaviest, right around the eye, right there. And it looks like the majority of that may stay offshore. It's going to be very, very close, but that would be a godsend for St. Croix. But look at the forecast track from the Hurricane Center for Puerto Rico, and it's going to be really hard to miss Puerto Rico at this point. Now, if it goes further to the north, it would be just eastern Puerto Rico would get the brunt of it, but whoever gets that eye wall is going to have the worst weather and the worst damage out of it. Here's the forecast. By tomorrow night this time, the center is off of the northwest coast. It's knocked down to 145 mile per hour winds, and that may change. It's going to be tough. The mountains are about 4,300 feet, one of the tallest mountains there in Puerto Rico. That'll knock it down a little bit. And then Thursday night, it's actually starting that turn into Friday and Saturday. And notice it continues to weaken as it moves off towards the north. And notice Florida, it's east of us and east of the Bahamas as well too. The models are pretty much in agreement with that. Do want to keep an eye out for the Delmarva and out for places further north. It will be weakening. Some models are trying to take it out, others are trying to keep it in there, but this is the reason why it's going to happen. It's got an alleyway to go here because Jose has lowered the pressures between these two big ridges of high pressure. And so that opens up the door, allowing it to turn north, which Irma didn't have. It had high pressure over the top, and you can see the models are in agreement with it as well too. All right, let's get you your local forecast. It's quiet out there, guys. Some people out there at the Lightning game tonight. 84 degrees is the current air temperature. Dew point's back up to around 70. No rain out there. You can see even the bigger picture doesn't show much. Tomorrow, we will see a few showers, mainly south of I-4, but rain chance for Tampa and St. Pete still low. Sarasota, perhaps 30%. That number goes up as we get into Thursday and even on Friday. So staying warm, about 90 to 92 for tomorrow. Thursday, rain chance goes to 30%. We'll go 40% on Friday, staying in the upper 80s to near 90, and then slowly coming down Saturday. As Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday get here, the storm's going by to our east, dry air comes in, and we dry out.
Now, from your Suncoast Hyundai dealers, this is 10 Sports.
I mean, so well-deserved. He was the perfect man for the job at the perfect time, changed the culture here, and it was nice to see that acknowledged.
Well said, B.A. The Rays honoring Joe Maddon in his homecoming in what felt like a home game for the Cubbies. Just over 25,000 tonight at the Trop to welcome Joe back. And as Justin Granite tells us, his return was a reminder of just how good the Rays had it.
Joe Maddon is as cool as ever. Greeted like a celebrity in his first trip back to the Trop, and dinners on Prima Pizza in Wesley Chapel. Owner Willie Lopez bringing Maddon an Italian sub.
Dressing on the side. Thank you, brother.
Joe savoring the memories.
Quick 9 years. Quick. And that's the thing, man. As you continue to move this thing forward, and then one of the things I try not to do is make it go too quickly. I try to embrace the day. I try to embrace the moment. I try to stay in the present tense. But that was a fast 9 years, and I think I have nothing but warm fuzzies about it.
That feeling is reciprocated by Joe's former players alike. Evan Longoria went from a rookie to the face of the franchise under the tutelage of Maddon.
He was a really stable force in terms of, just saying, hey, go out and do what you're capable of doing, and don't put that extra pressure on yourself. And when it comes from the top, when it comes from a guy like that, you're able to really kind of buy into it and believe it and just play the way you're capable of playing.
The Rays were irrelevant until Maddon was hired in 2006. All of a sudden, there were snakes in the clubhouse, dress-themed road trips, and most importantly, winning baseball.
Well, I think the changing of the culture is the most difficult. You can't win unless you do that. And I know when I came in, some of it, what I did was met with skepticism.
Maddon left the Rays for the Cubs in 2014. He won his World Series. In a way, so did his fans in Tampa Bay.
I'll take a deep breath out there and I'll look at those banners and I'll look at the ballpark. After all we went through here for 9 years, pretty spectacular situation.
Maddon reminiscing and then dissing. Firing shots at the Trop without even being prompted. He brought up the Rays Stadium saga, saying the Rays needed a home and, quote, you don't need an erector set. You don't need stuff hanging from the ceiling. Candid to say the least. So, where should the new park go, Joe?
It's got to be on the other side of the pond, man. It just has to be. I think downtown Tampa is listen, I live over there. We have a great pad. We got a business over there. My wife's got 2 businesses in town, so we're pretty much invested here. You just need to get on that side, I think, to really make this thing work, or give it a chance to make it work.
Well, Joe certainly made it work at the Trop. There he is back in his old office, and tonight ended with a familiar feeling. Rays down 2-0, and this was the lone hit of the night. Brad Miller homering to make it 2-1 in the 8th. 2-1 his 8th, I should say. But here's the X-ray. Wade Davis closes it out in the 9th. A W for Joe in his first game back. The NHL community is absolutely in shock tonight, guys, hearing the news that former Brian Boyle was diagnosed with leukemia. It's actually bone cancer for Boyle. Hopefully, he's going to be okay. And thankfully, it is treatable. Steven Stamkos sending some prayers out to him, saying there's no doubt in my mind that you will beat this. Boyle certainly on the minds of all of his former teammates. Tyler Johnson, Nikita Kucherov also sending prayers Boiler's way. Bolts open up the preseason at home against Carolina. They lost 2-1. Stammer, Cooch, Vassy, lots of regulars sitting this one out. The rematch is tomorrow in Raleigh.
Tonight's lottery numbers are brought to you by Dimmitt Chevrolet. See for yourself what hundreds of new and used cars look like. Volume and price make the Dimmitt difference. Visit DimmittChev.com, where luck is on your side.
The legendary Broadway show Rent began its run at the Straz Theater tonight.
A local teacher and her students are trying to raise money and awareness for a good cause because of their connection to the show.
Yeah, Rent made its Broadway debut 23 years ago.
That long ago.
One person, yeah, that long ago. One person
like
who never got to see its success, though, is the creator himself, Jonathan Larson. He died suddenly of an aortic dissection the morning of the show's preview performance. The death was connected to an undiagnosed Marfan syndrome. It's a rare genetic disease affecting 1 in 5,000 people, including some families right here in the Bay Area. Liz Funk lost her husband just over a year ago and is now making it her mission to educate others.
My husband had an aortic dissection several years ago, and because he was diagnosed, because he had been diagnosed as a small child, when we got to the emergency room, we were able to say to them, he has Marfan syndrome, and they immediately knew, you check for an aortic dissection.
And Liz is a math teacher at Hillsborough High School. Many of her students will be volunteering this week at a booth set up in the lobby of the Straz during Rent performances. The Straz Center will donate a portion of ticket sales on select nights to the Marfan Foundation to help with treatment and education.
That is so fantastic.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
What an interesting connection, you know, that the two of them had, and to make this into a benefit.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And it's a great show. Recommend
Hopefully a lot of
everybody
money
go.
is raised to help out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Worth checking out. That's going to do it for Nightside.
Have a great night.